So first of all, good morning teacher and hello everyone. We are from group 4 consisting of 4 members, me, Panyarat, Marani, Monica and Phnom. Today we are going to make a presentation about chapter 3 which is getting to know another culture. And for our content today, we have 3 main points which are about thinking and knowing. The second one, doing and achieving, and the last one, the big picture. So before we get to know about the 3 main points of the lesson today, we are going to look at the first basic information or some basic introduction about the chapter first. So getting to know another culture is the term that we need to get more knowledge about other cultures, such as where it came from, their tradition, and how can we communicate with them. We may overcome and avoid radical and ethnic difference by understanding different culture. The situation that misunderstanding, missed opportunity, and occasionally violence are brought on by radical and ethnic difference. Just like an example in the book said that having a fish tank in the restaurant is mean good profit for Chinese people. So understanding another culture is an ongoing experience that can last a lifetime. So this point is theory about understanding an unfamiliar culture. So the scholar Gerd Hofstede was conducted a study about culture with 116,000 respondents from 53 different countries, and he was interested in finding out if national culture could be compared along with the same dimension. The researchers originally identified 4 dimensions along with country culture differ. So the first one is individualism versus collectivism. For the individualistic culture are those that emphasize individual achievement and rights, including the individual right to make decisions for himself or herself. And collectivistic culture emphasize the group achievement and right, including the group rights to make decisions for the individual also. And the second one is power distance. Power distance is the degree to which less powerful members of an organization tolerate unequal distribution power, say between the manager and employee. And the third one is uncertainty avoidance versus uncertainty tolerance. Uncertainty avoidance is the tendency to behave so as to arrange things in the way that minimize unforeseen consequences. And the uncertainty tolerance is result in behavior that is less concerned with unforeseen consequences. And the last dimension is masculinity versus femininity. As we know that masculinity is the way that characterize culture that value assertiveness and competitiveness and material success, while femininity characterize culture preference for collaboration, nurturing, and harmony. There are many ways to approach understanding a culture, and we synthesize this study into the following 5 categories of questions that focus on the value in a culture, allowing you to compare culture by assessing how each of the questions can be answered for different culture. And the question about the culture that need to be asked for business fall into this 5 categories. The first one is thinking and knowing. The second one is doing and achieving. And the third one, the big picture. The fourth, the self. And the last one is social organization. And the first 3 categories will be discussed in this chapter. So here the question, where can the information about culture be found? And as Edward Hall pointed out in Beyond Culture, the closer something is to seeming true, the less aware we probably are of its cultural origin. People own culture seem normal to them, and it seems just the way the things are. And one way of asking question is to notice that another culture goes about something differently from the way you expected. And another good source may be someone who has spent considerable time in that culture, but it is not a native member of it, but someone who has lived in another culture and has had exposure to the difference between his or her own culture and the culture you want to understand. You may be able to learn from a non-native culture about cultural priority that a native of that culture simply take for granted. So the question here is, are generalization productive or perilous? General insight you form about a culture from asking about cultural priority will always need to be revised and re-examined in specific context. Key factors include how much previous knowledge the other have about your culture, how much time both parties have spent in each other cultural environment, and what the dominant influence of prior encounter were. The pursuit of answer to this question about cultural priority is an ongoing process. You can continue to learn about other culture and your own culture as long as you continue to pose question. And finally, each of the question to pose of the culture should be thought of as a continuum, with the first characteristic at one pole and the other at the opposite pole, and you can position the culture you are going to consider at any point between the two poles wherever it seems appropriate in light of your level of knowledge of that culture. And for the question, we also adding are the result important or are relationship important? And that is all for my part. Let's move to the next part, and I will hand the floor to Marani. Thank you.
Good morning, teacher, and hello everyone. My name is Marani. I am the second presenter for this presentation. And for my part is about category 1, thinking and knowing. And there are also 4 questions that are related to this part. For the first question is about, does knowing come from concept or experience? And how do people know things? In some culture, members who are older are regarded as wise, and younger members do not question the veracity of senior members' statement. In culture where age and status are synonymous, and a different kind of experience or meditation is knowing by intuition and knowledge of the true nature of things came from meditation, which is not exactly the same as intuition. In some culture where Taoism, Buddhism, and Hinduism are the predominant religion, and Buddha taught that every individual possesses truth within, and meditation is a way to get to and acknowledge the inner knowing. And according to Buddhism, knowledge acquired through meditation is more valuable than knowledge that acquires through study or listening. And for the question, second question is about, does learning come from asking question or mastering wisdom? So what exactly is learning? When people are very young, people learn how to learn first at home before going to school, and then going to school. And so people early learning pattern remain unchanged throughout their life. In many Asian, Latin American, and Southern European culture, asking questions does not lead to learning, and learning entails receiving and absorbing instruction from teacher. And writing text may be used by some teacher to communicate, and teachers are aware that their job is to educate students so that they can also educate others too. And what it means to know and to learn is shaped by culture, and the majority of business offer training to their employee and expect them to keep learning new things as technology and the need of the business involve. And when an organization hire a multicultural workforce of participate in global activity for the first time, like they must learn it. So the third question is about, does knowledge have limit? Can everything eventually be known? Some people in culture with a highly developed research economy believe that the physical world will one day be known is enough science, the right theory, and the best equipment are used. Prop into human behavior, the atom, the sea, the space. Every one of these will yield large responses one day. However, there are a lot of non-scientists who hold a different viewpoint and are of the opinion that scientific investigating into the physical world will never reveal everything. And there are something like we can know. Following a separation of the sacred from the secular that began hundreds of years ago, the spiritual truth was generally held to be knowable through faith in Western Christian culture, and we can know if we have faith. Faithful beliefs are a little affected by science when contradicted by scientific finding. And for the last question is about how do people reason? Reasoning and knowledge are both closely linked. Culture also have different reasoning style. A person's life experience are represented by mental pattern, and the main influence of life-related communication is friend, and processes that are learned from birth are the pattern. They are not entirely settled. We guess that all typical human children are able to do any of the ideal design at any point or to lie in the entire history of human life. Cause and effect is the most common way that people in Western culture think. In English, the word reason mean cause or reason why, and a reasonable person is one who recognize cause and effect relationship is in the faith. Thinking in terms of cause and effect is linear. From cause to effect, we could draw a straight line with an arrow pointing to the result. And linkage is essential to ancient way of thinking. Even when that whole impressed contradiction, links are constantly sought to demonstrate the wholeness of life, and the fundamental philosophical foundation for the thinking pattern that can be identified in Chinese business communication is the unity of human experience with the entirety of life. And the point of business communication is that Asian business people typically focus on relationship and connection that provide contact and meaning to things. And this is the end of my part, and the next part will be presented by the next presenter.
Hello teacher and hello everyone. I am Molika and I am the third presenter of today's presentation. I am going to cover category 2, which is doing and achieving. There are 6 questions in this category. The first question is doing important or is being important? The view of some culture calls for value in the present moment and celebrating being. However, to the celebrators of existence, a great deal of activity in doing cultures look pointless. Being culture values stillness, collectiveness, and serenity. Members of doing culture view silence as a waste, a time when nothing is doing. However, members of culture that value being also often value silence. In silence, the present moment can be appreciated and experienced. Both sides have goals for outcome, but low-contact culture with emphasized results generate more concretely framed goals. The next question is, are tasks done sequentially or simultaneously? Even when maybe culture value activity, they may regard doing differently. In some cultures, the sequential performance of tasks is considered normal behavior, whereas in others, simultaneous performance is normal. People may have personal styles and preferences for getting work done. In general, workers in sequential task culture know at the start of the day what they will doing during the segment of the day, morning, lunch hour, afternoon, or evening. In contrast, although a simultaneous task performers know in general what the task is given and they will be, the day have a fluidity that allows for more and less important tasks that will take more or less time, and the performers assume that many tasks will be attacked simultaneously. The third question is, do results or relationships take priority? Results culture regard ends as more significant than the means used to achieve those ends. In countries where power is concentrated at the top level of organization and is used according to personal favor, a healthy and strong relationship with the powerful one is a primary goal. Moreover, when there is a strong relationship, specific outcome can be worked out. Contract can be written and signed because relationship exists that will endure their performance. No wonder relationship-oriented culture value the means to an end more than the end itself. Finally, people don't necessarily agree about what signifies an achievement. You may assume that all business people equate achievement with profit, but that assumption is not always correct. Furthermore, even when people agree that making money is their goal, they may have a very different idea about what it means to have money and what is the worth. In addition, relationship-oriented cultures tend to be collectivistic. The relationships that connect people in networks are more significant than the tasks people accomplish. Results-oriented cultures value outcome of the action, especially measurable outcomes, and as what matters at work and in life. The next question is uncertainty avoided or tolerated? Uncertainty means the inability to be sure about exactly what the future will hold for oneself and one's business environment. It exists in all the cultures and in all organizations. The uncertainty avoider may not understand that a different attitude toward uncertainty lies behind what appears to be simply an irresponsible approach on the part of a superior who is supposed to be responsible. The uncertainty tolerator, which is known as the boss, may identify the subordinate as anxious for no good reason, rather than someone with a different attitude toward uncertainty. Uncertainty is not the same as risk. Risk involves a specific potential loss, but uncertainty does not. Risk in business involves multicultural and multinational contact is even more unavoidable. Moreover, people who are uncomfortable with uncertainty tend to stay with their employers and follow established procedures at work. And people who are able to tolerate uncertainty with lower levels of anxiety may attempt new things in their professional life. The next question is luck an essential factor or an irrelevance? Luck is one way to deal with one's anxiety about the unknown. In cultures that think in cause and effect pattern and that value result, planning is the key to success. Westerners are fond of the saying that we are the architect of our own destiny. However, people whose culture acknowledge the role of the luck in human affairs view the attempt to control life through planning as merely an illusory and pointless activity. In cultures in which luck is acknowledged to play a role in business, people who discount luck may not only insult the luck seeker, but can also risk being thought as careless or even endangering the business. In sum, luck or fate or destiny play a large role in culture in which people recognize that their role in achieving success have less effort than do forces outside themselves. In other cultures, outcomes are not left to luck, but are considered to be largely controllable by human effort. The last question of this category is, are rules to be followed or banned? This cultural dimension is closely related to uncertainty avoidance versus uncertainty tolerance, and to luck. Having rules and following them and making sure that others follow them too is the way of reducing anxiety about the uncertainty. However, whether rules are followed also has to do with what is important in a society. In places where relationships are primary and power distance are great, rules may be banned to serve those more important values. However, in places where results matter, rules are viewed as important to facilitate results. This is the end of my part, and for the next category, let's give the floor to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank
you, Bomolika. Moving to the last category of the chapter, it talks about the big picture. The big picture here refers to the big questions that every culture has to answer. So the first question is, do humans dominate nature, or does nature dominate humans? To answer this question, it depends on the cultural priorities, whether members of a culture prioritize sacredness or secularity. Sacred means God or spiritual beings, and secular means the physical world or the non-religious context. So nature is the natural phenomena and natural environment that envelop human endeavor. Some people believe that the nature is an inexhaustible resource for human survival. They believe that the nature is always there to sustain every life, especially human life. However, that is not necessarily true. Instead, the archaeologists have shown that the ancient culture had cultivated land so much that it caused soil erosion and deforestation. Only after in this generation, in the last several decades to be specific, has the debate for environmental protection taken seriously. In the religions such as Buddhism and Hinduism, people view nature as sacred, meaning that they believe that nature is dominating humans and it is highly appreciated. For example, Japanese culture, whose members mostly follow Buddhism and Shintoism, they protested against a dam constructed in the Nagara River because the construction has intruded the carefully cultivated scenery. On the other hand, among the cultures whose priority is to dominate nature, technology is often called upon. People think of life as secular, meaning that there is little or no involvement of God or spiritual life. Human creates and develop tools in order to survive, and they will always keep this endeavor in this secular world. The next question talks about, are divine powers or humans at the center of events? So first I would like to talk about what is divine power. Divine power refers to deity, and deity again refers to God. So it means divine powers is the God or supreme beings. Some people believe that human activity, including business activity, come within the divine power. They believe that all human activities have the involvement of the power of the God. In a country like India, a businessman goes to the temple to get his company truck get blessed before work begins. In Thailand, a businesswoman offers food to Buddhist monks early in the morning before she opening up her shop. So this section involved with some religion in the world. So let's explore it a little bit. The first one is Hinduism. Hinduism is one of the world's oldest religions. Hindu people believe that the living things are reborn in the cycle of death and rebirth until they reach nirvana, or in Khmer we call Nibbin. It is a state of eternal peace and bliss. And the Hindu people have what they call the caste of system. It is the system of hierarchy of Hindu people, and it divides the Hindu people into four main categories. The first one, which is the top one, is Brahmins. They are priests. The second one is Kshatriyas. They are warriors. The next one is Vaishya. They are merchants. And the last one is Sudras. they are commoners or servants. There is actually one more hierarchy or rank, which is called Dalits or untouchable. But because it is considered to be outcast, so it isn't counted into the hierarchy. Each caste carry its own duty to perform, and they are expected to live according to the expectation of their caste. Although the caste system has been declared illegal, it still exists in the Indian culture. The next one, we talk about Buddhism. Buddhism interprets one of the ideas from Hinduism, which is called karma. Karma means the inevitable result of behavior in the cause and effect sequence, meaning that good deeds generate good karma and bad deeds generate bad karma. Buddha taught that the end of the circle of rebirth is Nibbana, or in Khmer we call Nibbin. So it is the same as Hindu Nirvana. And that is the ultimately end of the suffering. And as Buddha suggested, his four noble truths are to exist is to suffer. Suffering is caused by desire, which is never completely satisfied. Suffering stops when desire stops. And the last one, the Noble Eightfold Path is the way to end desire and thus suffering. The next religion is Judaism. Judaism is the religion of the Jews, and it is the basis for the development of both Christianity and Islam. Most Jews share certain beliefs, such as they believe in one God. They believe that God has concern for humans. The next one is the concern that one person should show for another. The next is the covenant. The covenant is an agreement between God and the people of Israel expressed through God's law for the proper use of the universe. And the next one, they believe in Jewish practices. And the last one is the Jewish holy days and the Jewish calendar. Next, we talk about Christianity. Christianity is the faith of a plurality of the world population, but Christians are divided into several major branches, including Catholicism, Protestantism, and Orthodoxism. Christians believe in one God, just like Judaism, but the God we all probably know, their God is Jesus. Jesus is claimed by believers that he have been incarnate in a person who was a wandering teacher, talking about the God as Father and about himself as the Son of the God. And the last religion in the textbook is Islam. Islam is a religion that has approximately as many followers as Hinduism and Buddhism. Islam is the dominant religion in 19 nations, and the Muslims live in countries all around the world. Islam means to submit, and Muslim means submitting or obeying. Believers submit to the word of the God, and the common phrase for Muslim is Inshallah. It means that the will of God be done. They use this phrase whenever they want to express their hope for the future, and it reminds them of the God control of the future, as well as humankind's inability to change the destiny. And the five pillars of Islam are: the first one, Inshada, or the profession of faith. The second one is Shala, or worship. The third one is zakat or alms givings. The fourth one is Som or fasting, and the last one is Hajj or pilgrimage. All in all, for this section, the role of religion in people's life is something business people need to understand, because celebration of special days of the religions affect people's life and business. So business people need to find out what the nation's holidays are and when people will be available to conduct an effective business meeting. Also, they need to be very careful not to make assumptions based on stereotypes about other religions. They need to keep their minds open and their inquiry gentle. The next big question that we are going to address is, how is time understood, measured, and kept? So, time is used to measure something that is abstract, intangible, and defined however people want to define it. The value of time differs greatly for humans. So, what does it mean to be on time? The definition of punctuality varies from culture to culture. Time can be monochronic or polychronic. Monochronic means one-dimensional time. It means only one event happens at a time. And polychronic means multi-dimensional time. It means several events happen at the same time. In monochronic cultures, members are expected to arrive at work on time and work for a certain number of hours at certain activities. And then, after resting for a, a period of time, they are expected to continue the work. In some monochronic companies, being even a few minutes late is not acceptable. In polychronic cultures, on the other hand, time is an open-ended resource that is not to be constrained. Employees in polychronic companies can carry out more than one task at the same time as long as the work can be executed together with a mutual pace. Question number 4, it talks about, is change positive or negative? Whether change is positive or negative depends on one culture views it. Culture of the United States thinks of change as desirable and positive. The change for people of the US means moving forward to more desirable achievements, efficient use of time, and accumulated profits. When change is highly appreciated for a culture, the member of the culture tends to appreciate and express optimistic attitude about the future. However, for agrarian cultures, they typically perceive change in the opposite way. Since agrarian people cannot move away and take their land with them, they prefer a certain and stable community. They see the cycle of planting and harvest, rain and sun, days and nights as good. And they are pessimistic toward change because change means disruption to the patterns of life. Obviously, change always involved with what we have learned previously in chapter 2 is uncertainty avoidance. When a culture prioritizes change, people are not so worried about the uncertain future and willing to adapt and be flexible to the arrival of the new situation. Meanwhile, if a culture dislikes change, people will try to do anything to control the future in order to avoid the uncertaintiness. The very last question that we are going to discuss in this chapter is death the end of life or part of life? To answer this question is to understand how people in different cultures view death. Death is accepted and seen as part of life in some cultures, while others view it as the end of life. For some cultures, such as Asian cultures, even the suggestion of death or funerals is considered rude and disrespectful. That is why clock or watch should never be a gift for Taiwanese people, because it reminds the people of the inevitable end of human's lifespan. However, in New Zealand culture, death and funerals are viewed as part of life. Family members and relatives are expected to attend the funerals because it is believed that the dead person will reward them for their attendance. So overall for this category, the 5 key questions that have been addressed is heavily depend on how members of a culture perceive them, and how those perceptions affect the business vary from culture to culture, because one reality for a culture might be a delusion for another. So this is the end of our group presentation. Thank you for your listening.